What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bill Bronze and Dragons. I'm your host, Bill Bron Bafflestone. So today we're having another episode of my deep dive series. Today looking at the spell Haste. And I'll be perfectly honest, I wouldn't say that Haste is one of my favorite spells, but I do think it's pretty good. And I also think that it's a little bit underrated in the community. It definitely has its detractors, particularly my friend Pack Tactics, another YouTube producer whom I greatly respect and admire, and he doesn't like Haste very much. We go back and forth on this one, so this one's for you, buddy. Come at me, bro. Come at me. Because, like I said, I think there are really good ways to use this, and it can actually create auto wins. So, without further ado, let's take a look at Haste and see exactly how good it really is. So I've put the spell description on the screen so you can check it out. Haste is available to Artificers, Sorcerers, Wizards, Arcane Tricksters, Eldritch Knights, Gloria and Vengeance Paladins, Land Druids, Horizon Walker Rangers, and Bards through Magical Secrets. It imparts 4 benefits: move times 2, AC plus 2, advantage to DEX saves, and an additional Haste Action, which can be used for an attack times 1, dash, disengage, hide, or use an object. We're going to go over all of these one by one, starting with move times 2. This to me is the strongest benefit conferred by Haste. People who follow me should know that I am a huge fan of maneuverability and think that only the terms of engagement is more important than it in the 7 tactical aspects of combat. Feel free to see my original 7-part series on the 7 tactical aspects of combat for more details, particularly number 2. And Haste has a massive impact on your maneuverability. Combined with the Haste Action dash, you can increase your move from 30 to 120 feet per round. That is fantastic. Not only that, it didn't cost you any losses in terms of action economy. You can execute your standard combos normally, just at 120 foot speed. In fact, it can be more than that because this has synergy with increased base move, such as mobile or being a wood elf, and it has synergy with abilities that double your move, such as feline agility or boots of speed. I want to emphasize to people that a significantly superior maneuverability can often create auto-win conditions. I think flight is probably the best example. Flight creates auto-win conditions 60 to 70% of the time in 5th edition. And frankly, sufficiently high move is often just as good. As long as you can control the range, creatures that lack a strong or even any ranged attack are completely screwed. You will beat those creatures 100% of the time, and whatever percentage that is, and it's actually pretty significant, but whatever percentage that is, I will take it. Now note that the effectiveness of superior move is reduced in constrained environments. As such, some percentage of those auto wins that you get from flight won't be possible. And the environmental frequency of constrained environments is obviously going to vary from table to table, so your mileage may vary with Haste, but generally speaking, I think a high move speed is extremely powerful in 5th edition. There are also a couple of combos that are really good with Haste. The first being the Cheese Grater combo, where you grapple and then drag them through Spike Growth, because the greater your move, the more damage you can get from Spike Growth. And the other is the Grapple plus Climb, Jump, Fly, Drop combo, because the higher you can take them, the more damage they'll take from their drop. Haste increases your armor class by +2, and this is actually a very strong defensive bump statistically in bounded accuracy, which is the rule set of 5th edition. It keeps things pretty balanced relative to previous editions, and so while an AC +2 in 2nd edition isn't much, it's pretty massive in 5th edition. It's about half the impact of being attacked at disadvantage, and in fact will stack nicely with being attacked at disadvantage, for example if you have Blur or Alert plus Heavy Obscurement. And it also stacks with other AC bumps like Shield or Arcane Deflection. So personally, I find this to be a pretty awesome, underrated, and oft-overlooked benefit. Haste also grants advantage to DEX saves, and this is the weakest benefit conferred by Haste. Not really much impact under most conditions. It's best optimized by having a strong DEX save and or evasion, because if you have a bad DEX save, a reroll isn't going to help you too much. One thing to note about advantage to DEX saves, it does have synergy with Sleet Storm. Obviously, it would have to be from an ally or from an offloaded concentration mechanic, since both are concentration. Because while there are a lot of spells that confer DEX saves, unlike most of them, with Sleet Storm will often be operating from inside of it, because you can be optimized for it, for example by taking Blind Fighting or Alert, And if you fail to save, it's not debilitating like it might be if you were doing it with web or grease or something. It's just going to reduce your move a little bit, so you're a lot less hesitant to enter the Sleet Storm. And if you do, having advantage to DEX Saves is going to be nice. Finally, Haste grants an additional action which we will call the Haste Action, which can be an additional attack, dash, disengage, hide, or use an object. And this is amazing action economy. It just stacks on a new action type to all of the other actions. That is really super good. If you take the attack, it's a solid bump to DPR. And note that it does count as an attack, so it will proc certain abilities that require an attack. For example, you can cast Booming Blade with your action, which is casting a spell, but then use your haste action to make an attack, and that will then qualify you to make the bonus action attack of, say, Polearm Master. So that's a nice little Benny about haste that allows it to synergize with certain attack sequences. It also has synergy with Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter power attacks, has synergy with powerful magic weapons, and it has synergy with creatures with a powerful single attack. For example, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. This would be honestly really fun to combo with Polymorph when it's possible. That was one of the ones that was on my list as Bilbron Bafflestone that I wanted to pull off because I had means of offloading my concentration, and I thought, oh my god, it would be so fun to turn myself into a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then stack a haste on top of it, and then bite twice around, because the Tyrannosaurus Rex bite is fantastic. The haste action also has synergy with a net, because you can use the net and then still attack with your regular action, and use extra attack as well if you have it. And it has synergy with mechanics that offer a bump per attack, for example, Crit Fishing or Hexblade's Curse. The dash option for your haste action is an excellent option, I think. It will greatly increase your move, which, as we all know, I'm a huge fan of when needed. But that said, ideally, it's going to be unnecessary to have to use your haste action for that because we already have a pretty significant increase to our base move, thanks to haste. The disengage option is also weak to me. I don't actually ever see using it, because while it can turn us into a solid striker, so what? We should already be optimized for a particular combat style, so adding a new combat style doesn't seem to help much to me. The best option for your haste action, in my opinion, is the hide action. Stacking hide onto your action economy is amazeballs. You can combo this with heavy obscurement, and if you successfully hide on your bonus action, that means you can't be targeted at all. That is so good. So obviously, if you choose to go in this direction, you're going to want to have a good stealth score. Finally, you can use the haste action to use an object, which I think is a marginal option, but it can be useful if you're creative. For example, the best use of it, in my opinion, is to combo it with inhaled poisons. For example, Essence of Ether is lethal, and if you can get it as not even a bonus action attack, but just stacked on to what you normally do, that is really good. See my Showdown series video on poisons for more information. The link will be in the description. You can combo this with equipment, for example, ball bearings or caltrips, and then just drop those outside of your normal action economy. You can combo it with rope trick, so that you can both raise and lower the rope in the same round, and that basically takes you off the table from everything except for readied attacks. And you can combo it with the healer's kit so that you can stabilize downed allies as your haste action, or if you have the healer feat, you can even use your haste action to heal allies with the kit. So that's a fairly niche use of the spell, but it is possible. So when you cast haste, you have the option of casting it on yourself or on others. Casting it on yourself is not usually such a great idea if you're planning to enter melee. The risk of losing your concentration is very high, and you don't want that, especially with the lethargy penalty. That said, you can mitigate this by other means. For example, the Mind Sharpener will prevent you from losing your concentration at all, or something like Warcaster or Bladesong will help you by giving bonuses to your roll. But whatever you do, make sure you have a plan in place if you're going in that direction, which I don't recommend, to be quite honest. However, that doesn't mean casting it on yourself is useless. It is still an excellent option if you're employing tactics that make it unlikely that you'll take damage. For example, ranged attackers with superior maneuverability and the ability to control the range are going to be able to get some use out of haste. I mean, haste itself will create those conditions in many cases. And as I said before, leveraging the haste action hide with heavy obscurement plus stealth, or maybe even stacking alert in there, is going to mean you hardly ever get hit. Finally, one other reason that you might want to cast it on yourself is you might have access to Find Steed or Find Greater Steed. because that's really awesome. You can target the steed when you're casting it on yourself, and then the steed would retain those benefits, especially the haste attack +1, when you dismount and then start fighting separately. So that's really good. And while it's a tough combo to pull off, it is available to Lore Bards and to Glory Vengeance Paladins, or you can get it through items like the Spell Rot Tattoo or the Ring of Spell Storing or something. Alternatively to casting on yourself, you can cast it on an ally. And this is usually the way to go. It's a much lower risk of losing your concentration, and marshals are probably going to have better attack options through which to optimize the haste action attack +1. And in my opinion, this can be a fantastic buff option versus a BBEG with legendary resistance. Because casters hate BBEGs with legendary resistance. We're often very limited versus such enemies because we can't stick saving throws. So often, the best approach to such creatures is to buff your allies and let them beat it to death. And haste is good for that because it offers not only extra offense, but extra defense and extra maneuverability. And by the way, if you're casting it on an ally, rogues are a fantastic option. First of all, they're going to get better benefit out of the advantage to DEX saves because they have evasion and high bonuses. And that can be sweet because then you don't have to worry about friendly fires so much. They're probably going to evade your fireball if you decide to launch it. And even if he fails, you can just make fun of him, and what's he going to do, complain? More importantly, haste is going to give rogues an extra opportunity to land their sneak attack, and even more importantly, it's going to allow them to potentially land their sneak attack twice per round, because they can use their haste action attack on their turn to land a sneak attack, and then they can use their action to ready an attack for someone else's turn and land a second sneak attack. So that is a really awesome combo. And note that if you're an arcane trickster, you can pull it off yourself. So haste is an awesome option for arcane tricksters in my opinion. And finally, I want to mention that haste offers some nice metagaming benefits. When you cast haste on a party marshal, he's going to love you. Everyone's going to love you and say, wow, that guy is a team player. I just love this wizard. Why can't all wizards be as great as our wizard? Like, we have the best wizard. He casts haste on us. And the wizard can be like, well, okay, I was going to cast Summon Greater Demon and end it like in 2 rounds, but glad you like the haste. Right, it's a nice way for wizards to contribute without stealing the show. I used to cast it all the time on Bilbron Bafflestone, mostly because of the metagaming benefits. Lastly, I want to mention that you can cast it on a summon, which is not usually worth it. It's almost always better to cast it on one of your party members, but it might make sense if we need really high move speeds. Because sometimes summons have really good move speeds to start, and then you can buff that with haste, and that might make the difference if you really need a high move speed. Like, for example, it can be pretty amazing on a Phantom Steed, because that can increase your move to potentially 600 feet per round, which can be amazing in the right scenario. You can run down or escape anybody. And that'll never be hard to set up, because of course we're on a Phantom Steed all the time if we have it available, right? That's the benefit of it being a ritual. So the last thing we need to talk about with haste is the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of casting haste is very high. It is a 3rd level spell, and 3rds are amazing, and you could have cast a different one. It occupies your concentration, and no other spell confers lethargy when it ends. Some spells will contribute more DPR. For example, a simple bless will often contribute more DPR if you set it up right. And some spells will generally be stronger. For example, pretty much any control spell. And the lethargy greatly increases the penalties for losing your concentration, although do note that it isn't incapacitation. You can still take your reactions, for example, an opportunity attack or shield or the Polearm Master reaction attack, and you're not going to lose your concentration, obviously if you're not the caster and just the target of the spell. So only cast haste if your build is optimized to take advantage of it and you're executing a well put together tactic that optimizes its abilities and leverages its abilities. This is not the sort of spell that you can just throw onto any build and be optimized. You've got to put some thought into it. So remember when you're building a character to implement haste, that I think that the move bump plus the haste action hide or dash are the strongest benefits to this spell. I would totally build around those aspects of it and not necessarily so much try to max out my DPR with the haste action attack. And if I were going to be using haste, I might consider a sorcerer because there's some nice synergy here with Twin Spell. Only 3 sorcerer points and you can double haste your marshals and your party's going to love you 3,000. Oh, and note if you want the benefits of haste, but without concentration, so you can stack on maybe a polymorph or something really cool, you can always take a potion of speed. I mean, they are very rare, meaning they are buku expensive and hard to get. But I don't know, maybe you're lucky or rich or have incriminating photos of your DM. I don't know. But if you can get them, potions of speed are pretty sweet. All in all, I like Haste. I think you can use it in an optimized way. I think it's really good in certain scenarios, like when it can generate auto wins, like when you need it against a creature with legendary resistance. If you're an arcane trickster setting up a second sneak attack per round. It's a spell that has its place. I give it a rating of average. So that's it. That's my analysis of Haste and all of the reasons why I do like it, and I have cast it, and I think it's a good spell under the right conditions, but I think it might be controversial. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm actually very excited to have this conversation, and regardless, thank you so much for watching. This has been Bill Bronze and Dragons. I'm your host, Bill Bafflestone. See you next time.